And I thought, me and my kids took a couple hours for a couple of nights that week to build a bunk bed for that to solve that problem. Yeah, that's well worth my time. And I said to myself, no kid's going to sleep on the floor in my town if I have anything to do with it. So we just started building beds.
Welcome to the Nonprofit Nook, the podcast for nonprofit leaders, board members, and community changemakers who want to build stronger, smarter organizations. I'm your host, Wendy Kidd, a longtime business owner and nonprofit leader, and I'm here to bring you real talk, real tools, and real stories to help you thrive in the nonprofit world. I'll be talking with local nonprofit leaders, community changemakers, and experts in everything from board development to fundraising and digital tools, sharing real stories and simple strategies you can actually use. Because running a nonprofit is hard, but you don't have to do it alone. Let's get started. Hey everyone, welcome back to the Nonprofit Nook. Today I have Luke Mickelson. Luke is the powerhouse founder behind Sleep in Heavenly Peace, a global nonprofit dedicated to the mission that no kid sleeps on the floor in our town. What started as a single handmade bunk bed in a garage has exploded into a movement with over 400 chapters across 47 states and 4 countries, delivering more than 350,000 beds to children in need. A former farm kid from Kimberly, Idaho, Luke blends his background in competitive athletics and business leadership with his humans helping humans philosophy. His journey from corporate professional to CNN hero and American Ninja Warrior has been featured on NBC Nightly News, Good Morning America, and The Today Show. Today, Luke travels the country inspiring audiences to find the extraordinary in tiny moments and rediscover the profound joy of service. Thank you so much for joining me, Luke.
Well, thanks, Wendy. Well, powerhouse. I hadn't been called that before.
I thought it was appropriate.
I'll take it. I'll take it. Sure.
I'm really, really appreciative of you coming on the show. I haven't had a whole lot of people who were not local yet, so you're one of my special people. Thank you.
Right on. I'll take
And
special people. That's good.
you are special people. And after hearing your story, I was like, this is a no-brainer. We have to talk about this, especially what you've done, how you've scaled your nonprofit, and with the wonderful work you're doing in Founders Syndrome. So let's dive in. Tell us about, let's start with the nonprofit. How did you start with Sleep in Heavenly Peace? Where did this come from? How did you dream this up?
It's funny. I'm from a small town, right? 4,000 people. Kimberly's really small. And the beauty about the small town is the same thing why it kind of sucks. It's because
Yeah.
you know everybody and everybody knows you, right? And
Mhm.
but what comes with that as you get older and you look back, you can look back and say, that is what brought people together. That's the community sense, the support that I always felt being from a small town, being a farm kid, when people are pulled over the side of the road, you just stop to see how they were doing, right? And I enjoyed that. Plus, you had this, again, this camaraderie, this sense of support. I was raised by a single mom. We had 5 kids, single mom. Christmas was pretty lean most of the time. But I remember the first Christmas after my parents divorced, I walked out to the mailbox to get the mail. There was $1,500 in an envelope there. That was the kind of community that supported each other, right? And I always
Yeah.
wanted to be, someone did when they could. I want to do when I can, right? So I kind of always had that mentality, and as I grew up in life and served a vision for my church, and then went into school and work, I always had this mentality like I want to look at my job, my career as a way to serve others, and that has been so fulfilling, right? I don't feel like I work a day in my life because I'm always, even when it's hard, I'm there to serve someone. So you almost get more satisfaction out of it, knowing that even the harder times, it just means more sacrifice, more service. So that was kind of my mentality. However, when you're 35 years old, right, then I think all of us at some point go through something in our lives. They call it a midlife crisis. I didn't look at it that way. It was a crisis, right? It first started out with a faith crisis, not sure in what I believed anymore. I've been a part of a
Mhm.
religion for so many years, my whole life, and now I wasn't sure about that. And then, I think more importantly, I didn't know what was most important to me in life. Like I grew up in a very poor situation with a single mom, and she pounded it into us kids get your education, get a good job so you don't suffer, you can provide for your family. So I always measured success based on how much money I made, how many toys I had, the things I quote financially provided for my family. And there is
Sure.
a little there is success there for sure, right? But I think when you get older, right, and you start having kids and you start realizing, you know what? Money isn't everything. And in fact, when it comes to happiness and it comes to true lessons learned and how to get through life, it's far less than about money. It's more about like what impact am I going to leave behind, right? It almost turns into legacy at this point, you know? Well,
Yeah.
when you don't have those answers, Wendy, it's not a fun state to be in, right? Especially when you
No.
think especially when you think you're on the right track, you think you know what's right, you think you know all this stuff, and all of a sudden the brakes get pumped and you have to go, okay, now what do I really believe? Like what do I really want? Well, this is kind of a depressing state I was in. And I had been for a couple of years, kind of by myself, right? And I'd pep talk myself out of it, and it just get worse and worse. Well, in this kind of state of turmoil, I had three kids. One was really young. I had a 7, 6, and a 10-year-old. And in my church service, I was what was called a young men's president, and basically I was over the young men's program, kind of like a youth pastor, kind of in the
Hmm.
South. I'm not
Yeah.
I wouldn't
Yeah,
consider
that's
myself
pretty typical.
pretty close, right? I loved
Yeah.
it because I was a coach. I loved working with the kids, so I just fit into the role. Part of this, the activity program that we used was the Boy Scouts, and I wasn't
Hmm.
the scout master, but I was the leader of the scout masters, right? Well, in this position, every other week we'd sit in the church leadership meetings where other leaders, including myself, we'd stand up, we'd tell what our program's doing, we'd talk about things that were happening, people we were helping within the congregation as well as within the community. Well, one leader gets up and starts talking about a family that really caught my ear, Wendy, because they lived in a part of my town that I didn't even know existed. And you got to understand, Kimberly's 4,000. Back then, it was like 3,500 people, right? And
Yeah.
I remember riding my bike around this town since I was 5. I mean, come on, I knew every inch, or at least I thought I did. So at first, I was like, "Whoa, where's this place? Where's this 2-bedroom apartment that I have no idea about?" Right? And then she started talking about that she had visited the home and she started talking about the things that the family needed, right? The mom was the school bus driver and the dad suffered from some mental health, couldn't hold a job very well. So financially they struggled. So they needed food and they needed rides to school and the kids didn't have beds and they needed clothes. And I was like, whoa, wait a minute, wait a minute. Did you just say the kids don't have any beds? And she says, yeah. And I said, well, certainly they've got like mattresses, right? She says, no, they're just sleeping on the floor. And that hit me. I
Hmm.
mean, I still get
Yeah.
chills to think about it. I thought about my own kids, right? And what would that be like to sleep on the floor, right?
Yeah.
But then I got excited because I thought about my Boy Scouts. And every leader that's listening right now knows finding an activity that's fun, that doesn't involve a screen, a computer, an Xbox, not an easy thing to do nowadays. And it wasn't
Right.
easy back then. This is about 2012. So I got excited. I said, "Here's a great opportunity. I can get an Xbox controller out of these boys' hands, and we'll put a drill in it and teach them
Nope.
something." Right now,
Yep.
I'd never built furniture before in my life, but hey, I'm a farm kid. I can figure it out. I'm not a stranger to tools. So I went home and measured my daughter's bunk bed, came up with a design. Boom, piece of cake, ready to go. So the boys came over, and for a couple of 3 nights, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, we built this bunk bed for this family. It was awesome. I mean, the kids, it was a coaching experience for me to be able to share with them and teach them the things that they had and the joy of service and appreciate and all this stuff, right? Well, it kind of got out in the community what we did. The boys told the parents and so forth and so on. Well, come Saturday night to deliver the bed, there was like 30 people that showed up to my house. And I'm like,
Wow.
okay, we can't send an army over to this 2-bedroom apartment. We wouldn't all fit in it, number one. And we're trying to be obviously respectful to the family. And so I and a bunch of leaders stayed back, but the kids and some of their friends and family went and delivered this bed. Well, the next day at church, they just told me how amazing it was. The kids were
Hmm.
so appreciative, and seeing their faces and even the Boy Scouts got a sense of what it's like, what it would be like to live and sleep on the floor, right? So I was really
Yeah.
appreciative of it. A great experience. I was bummed because I didn't get to go on it, but hey, we're the leaders. That's the sacrifice we make, right?
Right.
Well, it's funny. The next week comes around, and life just kind of creeps itself back in, right? The next thing you know, you're sitting on the couch, and you're fighting the same demons you were the week before. Because when I built that bed with the Boy Scouts, there was a spark. There was this little light that ignited in my soul that brought, and we'd done service projects before, but this one brought, I don't know if it's because it was kids or because of the situation or what, it just brought a lot of joy to my heart.
Hmm.
Well, now I'm back in the rut, and it was almost worse, because I just felt this, sitting on the couch, watching Big Bang Theory with my kids, trying to deal with this problem I had. Well, a commercial comes on, and it's some Xbox game control, whatever, and this is like 3 weeks before Christmas, and every parent knows what's about to happen, right?
Yep.
Yeah, we got kids. They turn around, and sure enough, Dad, we want another Xbox. Well, if you put yourself in my shoes, right? You're fighting this internal battle. You want to find meaning in life. You just did this amazing thing with the Boy Scouts. Now your kids want an Xbox. They got an Xbox. They don't need another one. They got a bed. These kids don't have beds. Why don't my kids? Blah blah blah. All this noise is just
Yeah.
blowing up in my head. And it was a tiny moment. A tiny moment came. A thought came to my mind. Said, you know what? Teach your kids. Sorry. Um,
No.
Teach your kids, Luke. Teach them something. And I don't know, Wendy. I just stood up. I just stood up, walked to the garage door. My kid said, Dad, where are you going? Big Bang's on. And I said, I got leftover wood. I'm not going to build another bunk bed, and you're going to help me. I
There you
wanted
go.
my kids, Wendy, I wanted my kids to feel the joy of service. I wanted them to appreciate the things that they had, like a bed.
Yeah.
And so we built another bed. That was the whole tiny moment. It wasn't that I knew another child that was sleeping on the floor. In fact, that was now a problem because I had this finished bunk bed in my garage, had no idea what to do with it.
Right.
So a friend of mine said, "Why don't you put it on Facebook, buy sell trade?" Which back then I didn't know what that meant, but sure, whatever. So I put it on there, and two things happened that I did not expect. The first thing was a lot of people commented on this post. People I didn't know, friends that I hadn't talked to for 20 plus years, right? And there was a bunch of them. And the shocker number two was that they all knew kids that were sleeping on the floor. And then they told me
Wow.
that the situations, kids on pallets, on concrete, three or four to a bed on an air mattress. And we all know how that ends up in the morning, right?
Right.
It blew me away. I wanted this bed to go to a special, really needy family. I didn't know there was that many. Well, then I got a call from a friend of mine and said, "Hey Luke, have you delivered that bed yet? You posted about it." And I said, "No, I haven't." And she said, "Let me tell you about Haley. Haley's a 6-year-old girl that has never slept on a bed before. She's only slept in the backseat of her mom's car." And and I was like, "Oh my gosh, this is a need that I want to take care of, right?" So we loaded up this bed, went out to Haley's house, and I'd seen poverty before. I'd seen transition homelessness, and my friend had helped them get this government assisted house. And so I walk into this house, and there was nothing in the house. And when I walked into it, I walked into it with looking at through the eyes of a 6-year-old because that's who I was there to serve. And when you do that and you see that there's nothing in here, you realize there's no couch or TV to watch cartoons on Saturday like I did. There's no kitchen table or chair to eat cereal like I did, right? The only thing in the house was a hot plate that had a can of soup on it. That was, and I'm sure it was dinner, right? That was it.
Yeah.
And you couldn't tell from Haley. She was so excited. She had a house, for crying out loud. She wasn't in a car anymore, right? She didn't know
Yeah.
why we were there, but I leaned down and I said, "Hey, Haley, why don't you show me your bedroom?" Right? And so she takes us back into the bedroom, and Wendy, you can imagine what this looks like, right? Holes in the carpet, tears in the wallpaper, no closet door, dimly lit, right? All these things. But of all these horrible things, the worst, it caught me totally by surprise, and I'd never seen it before, was in the corner of her room was a pile of clothes, and that's where she slept. Haley would come home from school, put her PJs on, sleep on her school clothes. And I'm talking shirt for a pillow and pants for blankets, right? And then wake up the next morning, put that same shirt and pants on and go to school. And it just floored me. I didn't go on the first delivery, right? So I didn't witness this. But I'm telling you, when you walk into a room physically, no video, no testimonial, no picture that you see, when you're there physically, it has a weight that I just did not plan for, right? I mean, I'm a farm kid, tough guy from Idaho, right? I'm supposed to hold this together, and I'm about ready to, blow up here. And
Yeah.
and and I was excited because we started when we brought the pieces of the bed together and start putting them together. I watched Haley. I wanted to see like what her reaction was. And sure enough, dude, it was like Christmas morning. I mean, she erupted. She came over and hugged me and my friend, these two strange dudes in her bedroom making all sorts of noise, right? And then she did something I'll never forget and had never seen before. She walked over and hugged and kissed the bed. I mean, have you ever seen a child kiss a bed before because they're so happy to have one? I mean, my gosh, I have a hard enough time getting my kids to make their bed, let alone, appreciate that they had one. It
True, true.
it just floored me. And if that wasn't enough just to melt your heart, right? You look up and here's single mom, again, raised by a single mom, and watching her cry. I knew what every single one of those tears meant. I'd seen it in my own mom. I'd hear it. I knew the guilt and the frustration and the worry that, providing for your kids, I couldn't even get a bed. I mean, I just knew it. And right then I knew, okay, this is way more than just a bed. And from that day on, I'm a hunter, fisher guy, love college football. I'm an outdoor guy. And I had been for 35 years, Wendy. And I kid you not, in a snap of a finger, none of that really mattered anymore. And I thought, me and my kids took a couple hours for a couple of nights that week to build a bunk bed to solve that problem. Yeah, that's well worth my time. And I said to myself, no kid's going to sleep on the floor in my town if I have anything to do with it. So we just started building beds.
That's amazing. I love that you found that passion when you needed it, obviously,
Right.
and were able to turn it into a lesson for your kiddos. I don't think there's a better thing you can do is to
Right.
teach that. And I came from a very small town too. My town has you beat. It was only 1,000 people.
Ooh,
But
nice.
it's you have that sense of ownership. It's your town. These are your people, and unfortunately, there's always those who go without. There are always those who need that help, and I love that you found that and you were starting to
Well,
address that need so quickly.
I mean, I only had my Facebook post that showed all these kids, and I was bound and determined to solve all this child bedlessness in my own hometown from this post. So we built 21 beds that first Christmas season and delivered them before Santa Claus. It was awesome. But
Wow.
the problem was the more that I built and the more that I shared, the more kids and situations people told me about. This
Of course.
child bedlessness thing started to get uncovered, right? And now we know child bedlessness, it doesn't even know it's a real word because it's not a real word, right? It doesn't even know it's not real, but it is very real. It represents greater than 3% of the total population of any given town on average. So if you're in a town of 100,000 people, on average, there is 3,000 kids sleeping on the floor or don't have a bed of their own. And to make matters worse, we're the largest bed building charity in the world now, sadly to say, because there's just not very many. And when I said, okay, I'm going to be a nonprofit, I went and scoured the internet to try to find another nonprofit that was doing what I wanted to do. I found one in the entire country. And and also when I started building and delivering beds, and I started getting calls from Child Protective Services, foster care, CASA, all these agencies that help these families. Dude, I was like
Yeah.
their favorite guy. I was
Of
like,
course you were. Of course
well,
you were.
yeah, I had no idea, but come to find out, they told me, Luke, you don't understand. providing a bed for a child in these situations is typically the hardest thing for them to get.
Really? That's so
Yeah.
interesting.
How would I didn't know it. It shocked me. I'm like, more than a fridge or a TV or rent or whatever, a child's bed. I mean, holy cow. And so, and as you and I speak right now, we have 440 plus chapters now that we've trained nationwide. We're in 4 countries. We build 100,000 beds a year almost. In fact, we're like 3,000 or 7,000 beds away from our 400,000th bed built, right? So
Wow.
huge milestone coming up. The sad reality is, as you and I speak right now, there are 150,000 kids on our waiting list. And to make it even worse, we only cover 28% of the United States. So, I mean, it doesn't take rocket science to put that math together and realize there are hundreds of thousands, there's millions of kids, over 10 million kids that don't have beds in our country. It's a luxury to them, and that is just simply wrong.
It's just crazy. It's just crazy to me. And I looked up where your closest chapter was to me. There's literally one in the town over next to me that's so tiny itself, Anna. I was shocked to
Where are
find
you
that
at?
you had. I'm in Melissa, Texas, so just north of DFW. I'm at the edge of that, and Anna is the town up from me. And so I was shocked. I was like, oh wow, they really are all over. It's crazy. And the fact that you only
Trying.
cover 28%, but you're right there next to
Yeah,
me. Wow, wow.
yeah,
So
we're
how did
trying.
you go from building these beds to having this much reach? How did you scale that, and how long did that take you?
We when the second year after that first year of building my garage, the second year I had a buddy come down. His name's Jordan Allen. He was the chairman of the board, and now is actually he took my role as the executive director. Does a fabulous job. He lived in Boise, which is an hour and a half away. So he started doing this Christmas project, is what it was, in his town. And then when we became a nonprofit, we just called it a chapter. Well, the funny thing is, as the years went by and the more we shared, of course, the more kids we discovered were in need. But the cool thing happened: more people want to be involved, right? And then we
Yeah.
started getting calls from friends and family that lived in other states and say, "Hey, can we have a build down here?" And I was like, "Better yet, why don't you start a chapter?" So we'd go over there and kind of teach them how to do it and get them set up, and then they would do what we were doing. And then we started getting calls from people that we didn't know. One guy in Minnesota, one gal in Maryland, and so we set them up as chapters. Well, that's all over the span of about 5 years, right? Of this growing.
Hmm.
Well, something happened in the beginning of 2018. We had about 7 or 8 chapters we kind of organically grew over the last. Really, chapters started about 2015. Um, and this event was called Returning the Favor, which was a Facebook watch series that Mike Rowe, the great Mike Rowe,
I love Mike, yes.
Dirty Jobs Mike, he hosted it. And the idea of the show was them to go around the country and they'd highlight nonprofits and their founders, and he would show up and surprise them, right? And then he'd give them something, whether it's donations or in kind, or whatever they needed. And in our case, we needed a warehouse because we were building out of garages and building out of crappy warehouses to build our beds. Well, what they really gave us was the megaphone we needed to announce what we were doing. It was viewed by 10 million plus people. And from that point on, we went from 7 chapters to 125 in the first year. And
Oh my
we grow about 50 or 60 chapters a year. In fact, we have a training
wow.
coming up that we'll be pretty close to about 170 chapters trained after this training.
That is so crazy. Okay, we're gonna have to do a whole nother episode on scaling and how to have chapters and all that. Like I
Oh yeah.
swear we're going to schedule another session where we could talk about that.
What's funny about that
But
real quick is as we
yeah,
grew, right, I started getting calls from other nonprofits that said, Luke, how did you go from point A to point B, right? Keep in mind, I'm
yeah.
an entrepreneur. I love business. I've started many businesses, sold them, did all
I
sorts of
was
stuff.
gonna ask you if you had owned a business before this.
Oh,
Yes.
many, many.
Yeah.
I'm a starter. I don't know why. I'm just a builder. Um, but when people ask you, how did you, nonprofit, how'd you, I was like, okay, first of all, I had no business starting a nonprofit, didn't know what that was, didn't know how to do it. So I'm only going to do it the way I know how to do it. I'm going to run it like a business. So that's
Right.
what I did. And now, years later, I'm able to look back. Some of the things that we did were very lucky that we did it right. Some of it we learned from, and since then, I still get asked all the time. So I actually have a little consulting company that I help nonprofits, how to scale and
I
how
love
to
that.
how to grow and stuff. So yeah, it's been kind of a fun thing. I just love it. And the reason why I did it was because I realized there are a lot of nonprofits that make very common, they're small, or they seem small, common mistakes, but they're detrimental to growth, they're detrimental to scaling. Because one of the biggest misnomers that I find is people don't look at nonprofits as regular companies, and you need to. You
It
need to,
drives me
because that's all
crazy.
they are.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
they're
You're
they're
still a business. You are
they're
still
still
a
a business.
business. You are just have a different tax classification. That's all
That's
it
it.
is.
You just don't
You
pay
still have
taxes.
to
That's
make
it.
money, but you're giving it away to other people instead of keeping it. Like there's no difference here. You still have to make money.
Yeah,
So
there's a
yeah,
whole
no,
there's a whole
that's
course I go through that you know between people that's just starting out nonprofits to people nonprofits. I've helped a nonprofit that's been around for 40 years and they haven't grown 1 inch.
yeah.
And when you look at
Yeah.
their fundraising model, you look at their program, you look how they're structured, it's not a surprise, you know.
Yeah, well, I call it they're stuck in startup mode. So
Yeah,
there's so many nonprofits that I know. It doesn't matter how long they've been around, they're still stuck in startup mode.
correct.
So yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It's so going through this whole journey, you talked to me a little bit about founder syndrome, and I want you to tell people what that is
Okay.
and your experience with it, because I know you have experience with it. So tell us a little bit about that.
Oh, well, thanks for asking. It's actually a very personal stories, personal situation. You have to be very vulnerable, and
Yes,
I'm
and I
learning.
appreciate that you're
Well,
willing to do that because as an entrepreneur myself, this story is very near and dear to my heart
sure.
because as an entrepreneur, I'm a founder.
Yep. You
So
get it. You
I
get
get
it.
it
And
completely.
this
Yes.
and this is where, listen, like I think the hardest thing in life, quite frankly, I could argue with you that the most important thing in life we can do for ourselves is just to be honest with ourselves, right?
Yes.
You can
Hmm.
learn to be honest with yourself, right? Which is the dang hardest thing to do on the planet because we have too much ego, we have too much protection and defensiveness and all this stuff, right? When you can get
Absolutely.
over that hump, right? And the best way to do that is you just have to be vulnerable, right? I had too many people tell me you're an overshare. Well, I don't care if I'm an overshare. I'm okay with myself, right?
Same. I have the same
trying,
problem.
trying to. Well, because of this, and I mean, for a lot of reasons, my wife has been very patient, very smart, level-headed woman. Um, and my cohort, the Jordan, my buddy that's now the executive director, very patient with me. And the reason why, and this is what founder syndrome is. When you build something, when you're a founder, when you're a CEO, even if you're just, in a job and you're asked to build a project, right? You're building something, right? Especially when it's very personal to you. And this is where a lot of nonprofits are super affected by this because nonprofits start because of a trauma, because of a personal experience, because of a change that they need to have, something very, very personal, right? So they start something, and so you build it. Well, when you build this organization, right, something happens that you cannot avoid, and it's called identity fusion, right? Here's your organization, and here's you, and all of a sudden you just become one. I mean, Wendy, ask yourself how many people say, "Hey, this is your baby," right? I
Yep.
mean, all the time, right? And then,
All the
like,
time.
like right now, no one on the planet, with exception of very few, I mean, 99.9% of the planet only know Luke Mickelson because of Sleep in Heavenly Peace, right?
Hmm.
They're one and the same. I can't leave my house with not being representing the organization, right?
Yeah.
It's both a beautiful thing and a burden. As a founder, you know what I mean, right?
Yep.
It's
Hmm.
because your identity becomes fused. And quite frankly, you want that. Number one, you can't avoid it. And number two, it
Right.
just means that you have a lot of passion for it. And when you have a lot of passion for it, it becomes successful, which is what we
Absolutely.
all want
Exactly. We want the thing to work.
to grow,
Yes.
right? Here's the problem: a company and an individual evolve when it comes to business, but they evolve much different from one another, right?
Mhm.
The best advice I give people when they start out, any organization, CEO or nonprofit, whatever, you need to realize your company will not love you the same way you love it. Because an organization, when it evolves, it doesn't have any emotion to it, right? We
Yep.
evolve because of necessity. We need new management. We need new leadership. We need new programs. We need, when you're a nonprofit, you get big enough. Now you need a board, and that board is designed to govern and protect not the founder. Doesn't give two craps about the founder. It protects the mission. It protects the
Yep.
company. So
Preach.
this identity fusion that we have, right, now becomes defused because we're evolving differently, right? The company now takes on different roles and different managements, and guess what? You're not wearing the same hats that you did down here. So you don't get invited. And quite frankly, you're not supposed to be going to some of these meetings that you created, right? You
Yep.
deal with you're not dealing with people that you hired, that you found and hired. You're not answering questions and dealing with media and doing all this that you put together, right? This decentralization, this disconnect becomes very personal. Remember, because this oftentimes the whole reason why you put this organization together was because of something very deep, very personal, probably saved your life. In my way, in my point of view, it really was a lifesaver for me, right? Not that I was in
Yeah.
trouble with dying, but just on a mental journey, it
Right.
it it solved my problems. And now I'm feeling like it's moving past me, right? I'm feeling I'm losing control. I'm disconnected. I'm not relevant anymore, right? This
Right.
identity
Yes.
fusion moves to the second or the third stage of founder syndrome, and it's called relevance wounds. Relevance wounds happen all the time. And the sad reality, founder syndrome will never go away. You will always have this quote, quote, condition, right?
Hmm.
And so when something happens, when you're not invited to an event, when a volunteer may not even know who you are, right?
Yes.
That can be a little bit of a stab. That's a relevance wound. Am I relevant anymore? And these relevance wounds, these things that happen as a founder, your reaction to them are typically very um, not good.
Yeah.
You know,
I'd say a
very
little negative, just a little negative.
negative, defensive. And
Hmm.
even though, Wendy, we know we're being that way, and we're not that type of people. I'm not a negative person. I'm not defensive. I'm open. Why am I doing this? Why do I feel so hurt and so betrayed by people that loved me and loved what I did? And now it feels like they're battling me and they're kicking me out and doing all this. Oh my gosh. Like
Yeah, the word betrayal, that I
betrayal
think
is
is
a
that
is a
hits a lot of
very
people, I think.
so
Yeah.
here I am, right? Here I was, and
Hmm.
and I know the exact moment I went, I'm in trouble. Like I hmm, I'm gonna lose the passion I've had, the organization I grew. I've got to do something about this, right?
Yeah.
So I was experienced. I built something. I became identity fused to it, whether I liked it or not. I didn't know what was going on, but yes. And now I'm feeling all of these relevant stabs, these relevant wounds, right?
Yeah.
So the fourth stage is is where we start understanding. I call it naming the monster, right? So if you have symptoms of something, you got a cold, runny nose, you're hurt, your back, whatever, right? And you go to the doctor. The worst case scenario, well, I shouldn't say worst case scenario, but what you don't want to have happen is the doctor say, "Man, Wendy, I don't know what's going on." I mean,
Right.
you go home and you're like, "I feel horrible." Now
Yeah.
you're like, "I don't know what to do with. I don't know what I have."
Yeah.
Versus
Yeah.
if you went
That
to the
is the
doctor,
worst. I completely
it's
agree
the
with you.
worst.
Yes.
It's the worst. But then when you go to a doctor and compare it to when the doctor says, "Oh no, Wendy, you have this and this, whatever," right? Like let's say you came up, you have cancer, horrible, right?
Yeah.
Right. So you come home, now you can deal with it. Now you've named the monster, and better yet, your spouse, or in this case, the other people of the organization and your board, now recognize, oh, this is what Luke's going through. And I can say, this is what I'm going through. Now you can understand what a relevance wound is doing to you. And
Hmm.
when we have monsters in the closet, and this is why I called it a monster, when we have monsters in a closet, or in this case, back behind our ears or our brain, giving us all these negative thoughts and words. The reason why they're so relevant to us and so they make a lot of sense to us is because it's our own voice. It's our ourselves. This monster is mimicking us, saying, hey, they're just pushing you out. What if they're doing this and everybody's against you and they're scheming about, all of these
Right.
terrible thoughts, right?
Yeah.
Well, it's because
Yeah.
we haven't named the monster. And when you name the monster, when you open the closet door and look at the monster, right? Well, let's reverse before that. If you don't open it up, that monster's big and ugly, and it gets bigger and bigger and more ugly because we haven't seen it. So when you name the monster, now you can address it. Now I can shrink it, right? And then
Yep.
there's steps, what I call the 5 disciplines of leadership evolution. There's steps that you take when you start feeling the monster, when you start feeling the relevance wounds that come from founder syndrome, right? And I'll give you an
Right.
example. The very first one is, which is a very obvious one, when you get struck, when you get stabbed, right? Someone says something. I'll give you an example. Our biggest event, we build beds nationwide. We have a huge event. We're partnered with Lowe's, which is an awesome company. In 24 hours in downtown Charlotte Center, we built 5,000 beds with 5,000 vol. I mean, it was a huge, huge thing. We had Good Morning America show up, all this thing, right? And Lowe's, the partner that I put together and I built the relationships for years, come in and Good Morning America says, okay, who are we going to interview? And they go, interview Jordan. And I was like, well, why wouldn't you interview me? Right?
Yeah.
And
Mhm.
it's not a control, it's not an ego thing. It was so hard for me to try to understand, am I not relevant anymore? Is my story not the same? Is it not is do I am I losing passion for this? And then to have someone next to me as this interview goes on. By the way, I was very happy for my buddy who was being interviewed by
Right.
Good Morning
Right.
America, right? I
Two
was
things
happy.
can be true at once. You can be hurt and happy for them at the same time.
Absolutely.
Yes.
And then you have someone say, "Hey, look, there's our new spokesperson for Sleep and Emily Peace." Oh,
Oh,
the
it's
new
knife to the heart,
spokesperson,
right?
right in the back. I mean, you better that was the moment. That was the moment that I went, "Okay, I'm in trouble," right? And
Yeah. Yeah.
so now when you have those relevance wounds, and they'll continue to happen, right? I mean,
Hmm.
I've only been I'm at a certain stage that I talk about later on, but you still experience relevance wounds. So the first discipline that you need to do is pause before you protect, right? You need a pause. You need a not response. And sometimes that takes days, Wendy. I mean, I had one just two weeks ago. It took me a couple of days to settle down and to see my way through it, right? Rather than reacting. And
Right.
and so that's just one of the 5 steps and disciplines that I teach in my Founders Syndrome survival course, helping founders and I should say help number one, helping founders deal with founder syndrome. But the last thing is just understanding your new leadership evolution, your new role. You can still be very, not still be, you are still very relevant, but you're
Right.
relevant in a different way. You're relevant
Yes.
in a different role.
Absolutely.
Now you're not a builder anymore. You're not the architect of this program because it's already built, it's already structured, and people are handling that. You have different stages of founder syndrome roles, or new, I should say, founder roles from founder syndrome. There's parts that you're still a builder. There's parts you can be an architect, but more importantly, now you become an anchor. I'm in the stage of what I call the ambassador, right? So now my role is to be the ambassador, right? I don't jump
Yes.
in and solve problems as much as I want to, as much as we're just programmed to, right?
Hmm.
You don't. You don't. You have to pause before you protect and understand that. Then you need to realize one of the disciplines is realizing need, like you being needed, has nothing to do with worth. Does
Right.
that make sense? So
Yeah.
when you feel less needed, you're going to feel less worthy, and that's simply not true. And
Exactly.
the beauty behind all of this, Wendy, it's all signs that your organization is succeeding,
That's the
and
crazy part, right?
that's the
Like that's the
crazy.
part that blows your mind as a founder is you're like, why am I unhappy when everything is going so well?
That's the hardest thing. It's like,
Yeah.
the two things have to happen, or not. I shouldn't say have to
Yes.
happen. They will happen. If your
Yes.
organization grows, it means your company's going to evolve. It will not
Exactly.
evolve. It will not evolve the same way you will. It just won't.
Well, and you don't
And
want it to. I've said to
right,
so many
correct.
founders myself, you don't want to do just this for the rest of your life. I can guarantee you, you've got more passions in you. I can guarantee you that your home life is going to change. I can guarantee you that there are going to be other things that you're going to want to have time for,
Yep.
that you can't just sit at this desk for the rest of your life. So you've got to figure out what else you are
Yeah.
besides this. That
Well,
identity fusion, I think that's such a great term because that's truly where they get stuck.
100%. But even if you're like, this is all I want to do the rest of my life, even if, and
Yeah.
that's almost worse, because I felt that way. I was like, man, I
Yeah.
don't want to do anything else. Like, I want to do this. I'm
Yeah.
getting close to my 50s. I just want to do this the rest of my life. And I still feel that way. What you need to realize is organizations grow and evolve, right? And you know it in your head. You're like, of course, I'm not going to be able to make all the decisions. Of course, I'm not going to be able to wear the hats I used to, right? What you're not coached on, what you're not ready for, what there's nobody helping you is dealing with the emotions that come from that and the
Yeah.
preparation and then the skills to work through those. And that's
Yeah.
the whole reason, Wendy. I mean, a very personal story to me, but that's the whole reason why I wanted to start this founder syndrome course. Because when I realized I was going down crap creek, if you know what I mean. Um,
Right.
I needed to find this out, and so I went into a kind of a personal journey. I mean, I was going to see counseling. I want to talk to a therapist. I was taking anxiety medicine because it was real. I mean, I'd never done that before in my life. I didn't know how to deal with this. I didn't have the diagnosis,
Yeah.
and now that I had the diagnosis, I went to find it. And the sad reality is there's very few books that reference or talk about founder syndrome, but none of those that I have found were actually written by founders that went through it. You know,
Oh, really?
oh
Oh,
yeah,
fascinating.
yeah. I mean,
Fascinating.
it's like reading the instructions on how to put something together, and I get it. But to
Yeah.
have someone say, "Listen," like I mean, you just get it. You
Yeah.
get the feelings, and you can't express that in a book, right? And it's
Absolutely.
so important. And I feel like this founder syndrome survival course that I've put together is pretty unique. But really, I want to help founders. Like, I wish I would have had this a couple of years ago. Um, I wouldn't be in such of a maybe rebuild some relationship mode that I feel like I am right now. And here's the thing, I've got a guy I'm meeting with on Friday that his board and him have just been bashing each other, right? To the point where
Oh,
board members have left and others don't feel good about him, blah blah blah. I mean, he is in serious crisis mode right now. Here's the thing, Wendy, there is always a way out because even the board knows that a founder and a company or an organization, if they can stay together, they're a much more powerful organization, right? But
right.
everybody
Absolutely.
wants that, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. No, I love this. I love this so much because I feel like this is, I see it in business owners as much as I see it in nonprofit leaders. And it's where people tend to fail. And they can sometimes just burn the whole thing down to the ground with them. And it's such an awful thing to witness. Everyone who sees it is just like, oh, this is such a shame.
It's a
But
shame.
I'm with you. There's just not enough resources out there to help people through this mental mindset change situation where they've got to have support to cope while they are making this change. So it's just, I love that you're doing this. I love it so
So
much.
I'm working on. This is still very new, right? I just started at the beginning of the year, so I'm still working some of the kinks out. But I'm going to put together a course for the board side of things as well, right? Even
Good.
though,
Oh, I'm so glad.
you know what I'm saying,
I'm so
even
glad.
even
Yes.
though the founder, they're doing most of the work. Again, it's kind of like if your spouse had cancer, right? And you
Hmm.
didn't know it, right? I mean, they're going through hell, and the
Yeah,
spouse is going through a different hell, right? They're trying to understand why is my wife so upset all the time, and she's so tired, and she does she not want to hang out? I mean, you start thinking these horrible things because you don't know what's going on, right?
exactly. Yeah.
And once you realize, oh, my wife has cancer. Oh, okay. That explains a lot of things, right?
Yeah.
And now and now they're more sympathetic. They understand. I had a board member not too long ago actually tell me, well, Luke, the company doesn't care about your feelings. He's not wrong.
Oh,
He's not wrong.
but to say
However,
that way.
yeah, well, isn't that like a spouse saying, listen, get your butt out of bed? You don't need to be staying in bed all the time.
True.
Okay.
True. Very true. You're
True.
right.
Like he's not wrong, but if he understood, right? If the board
Yeah.
understood, listen, I'm not asking you to change your feelings or react. What I'm asking you is just to understand, right? That I am
Yeah.
going through something as a founder that I'm going to need your help and patience with. And maybe you can word things just a little bit differently because you'll understand what I'm going through. So yeah, I want to do a whole course on how boards can support, not change their vision of what they're doing. Their still main
Right.
goal, right, is to protect the mission, but you can protect the mission while understanding and being respectful to the person that founded this, the reason why you're freaking there, right?
Right.
To understand what this person might be going through and even help them.
Yeah.
So,
Absolutely. I love this so much. You've talked
mm,
about so many great things today, Luke. I really appreciate you.
oh,
I would love for you to tell everybody how they can find out more about Sleep in Heavenly Peace,
yeah,
about your consulting agency, about the course that you're doing. Tell us all the things. Where can we find
yeah.
you?
So sleep in heavenly peace. First and foremost, right? The biggest ask I have is raise awareness with me. Help people know child bedlessness is a major problem. It really is, and it's out there. Number one. Number two, you can go to our website, shpbeds.org, and there you're going to find out the local chapter. That's what's going to come up is the local chapter. You're going to see how many beds they've built, how many kids they're helping, how many kids are on their waiting list, events that you can be a part of. You can donate, and 90% of your donation goes to that chapter and stays there with all the beds, right?
Love
You
that.
can start a chapter. If you don't have a chapter close by, you can start one, right? And then, of
Hmm.
course, last but not least, if you have a child that's sleeping on the floor, if your neighbor or your sister 5 states over, whatever, you can apply for a bed for that child. We got to find them. We got to help them. And you
Yeah.
don't know that you don't know how to fix a problem if you don't know the problem exists, right? So raise
Right.
awareness, reach out to your local chapter, start a chapter if you want, and then help us find these kids. And on if you're a founder or CEO that's struggling with this, right? You can go to my website, which I'm working on right now, but lukemickelson.com. I actually have an assessment form. You can take a test and see where you're fitting in your founder syndrome crisis, right? And then you can email me at luke@lukemickelson.com. On my website, you can actually apply to schedule a time for a little 15-minute meeting. We can talk about where you're sitting and then get you signed up for the survival course. I do a 1 day class, I do a 6 week course, or I do a 6 month coaching course, depending on what your budget is and what you want to do. I'm just here to help with examples I've learned from, as well as having a support group around us to be able to support us. It's difficult, but it's definitely
Yeah.
manageable.
Right. Well, and they should invest in themselves. Do this little bit, invest in yourselves and get the support that you need because
Right.
it'll benefit you and the organization all the way around.
Correct. Yes.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Luke, for your time
Yeah.
today. This has
My
been
pleasure.
fantastic. Guys, I'm going to put all these wonderful links in the show notes so you can go visit all these websites and learn all the things and take that founders quiz. I think that would be amazing. And let us know. Let us know if you tried it out, what you got. Let's hear about it. So thanks so much, Luke. And everybody, I'll see y'all next week. Thanks so much. Thanks for listening to the Nonprofit Nook. We're building better nonprofits together. If you found today's episode helpful, please subscribe, leave a review, and share it with other nonprofit leaders who need support. Follow the Nonprofit Nook on social media and sign up for our email list for extra tips and updates. You can also visit thenonprofitnook.com to see the show notes and leave a comment telling me what topics you want next. Your feedback shapes the show. See you next time.